Quick, think something funny to say.
Sports. Your pinoles are showing.
Well, cover them up for me, quick. This is the scary part. So let's season this baby. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the chubbiest of gourmets. That's me. Today we're going to be attempting to make a beef Wellington. However, there are a few twists that make my beef Wellington a little unique, a little bit different, and hopefully you'll enjoy it and possibly even want to make it to try it. I call this my surf and turf beef Wellington. So what is a beef Wellington? Well, a beef Wellington is the beef tenderloin, the center cut of the beef tenderloin, the fillet. And that is basically wrapped in what's called a duxelle. A duxelle is more or less chopped mushrooms and shallots, right? And then wrapped in puff pastry and cooked with a rare center. Now, our difference is, and the reason I call it my surf and turf beef Wellington is, to the duxelle, I'm going to be adding chopped shrimp a certain way, with certain seasoning. And that's the surf, where the meat is the turf. And it actually comes together in a very nice combination. It blends really well once you get the balance of ingredients right. So we're going to be trying that today. If you enjoy what you see, please like, subscribe, click the little notification bell. That way you get notified when we post. Right now it's every Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Comment as well, please. I like to hear your feedback, good or bad, your experience. If you tried making what we present and you liked it, all comments are welcome. And with that, let's start. And we've finally hit 1,000 subscribers. I want to thank you all for your support. And we're going to continue chugging out new episodes, cooking episodes, travel, food adventures out in other countries. Some of them exotic, some more exotic than others. And again, I just want to thank our 1,000 subscribers. This one is for you. Okay, first thing we're going to do, we're going to season and cook the shrimp. Now, keep in mind, this is going to bake in the oven with the beef. So we're going to cook these, but we're not going to cook them all the way through. Normally, you wouldn't do that if you're eating shrimp. We're just going to cook them a little solid. We're going to chop them up afterwards and put them in our duxelle. For now, we're just going to season them. Take a little salt. And a little bit of fresh pepper. And let's make it happen. I'm using some olive oil. And that's it for our shrimp. And this is the easy part. Actually, the whole recipe is easy. Beef Wellington always knocks their socks off when you serve it. It looks impressive. And it tastes even more impressive. But it's not as hard to make as it looks. And like I said, shrimp cook through very quickly. You would only need about 3 or 4 minutes to cook these through. These are a large size shrimp. We're just going to cook these to start the cooking. When we bake it with the Wellington, it'll get finished off. We don't want to overcook them. And as you can see, they're starting to turn. When I remove them from the pan, I'm going to put them on a paper towel. Get some of that oil off of there. I think we're there. Like I said, not completely cooked through, but pretty well cooked. Don't want to overdo it here. Oh, and by the way, I don't think I mentioned it, this is about a ½ pound of shrimp. And there you have it. While that's cooling down, we'll start our mushrooms. Okay, now we're going to make the official duxelle. Again, what's a duxelle? It's a fancy word meaning chopped mushrooms and shallots. We're going to be adding some seasoning to that, and we're going to chop up the shrimp that we just cooked and combine it all. And that's going to be our stuffing for this beef Wellington. So today should be a little exciting because I normally chop them up in a blender, a little bit at a time. Today, I'm going to throw caution to the wind and try to use a food processor and see how that works out chopping these up. Now, I don't want to make a puree. Oops, man overboard. I don't want to make a puree. I just want to chop them finely or dice them up, you know, nothing spectacular. So again, I'm just going to do a few at a time just to see how it goes. Okay, stand back. Hey, it's working nice. And that is actually the consistency that we want. Got about a pound of important portobello mushrooms. Different mushrooms have different flavors. I think the taste of the portobello in this dish goes beautifully. If you don't like portobellos, use another one. You're not going to hurt my feelings. And the next batch. Beautiful. Now that is the consistency that you're looking for. There's a few chunks in here, but I just break those up with my fingers. And already, nothing added, just pure portobello, minced up. You can smell the mushroom. And it's gonna smell divine when we add all the ingredients and heat them up. Now, heating them up. Mushrooms are literally like 90% water. So what we're gonna do, we don't want a lot of liquid in our beef Wellington. Liquid is an enemy because it'll soak through and it'll soak the pastry dough and ruin the dish. So what we're gonna do is gonna heat a pan. I will show you momentarily. No oil, no nothing. We're just gonna add these to a hot pan, slowly take our time. We do not wanna brown them. We wanna extract the water. Once we see the water coming out, we'll start adding our diced shallots and garlic, which I slice, not dice, just because I love coming across a piece of sliced garlic, personally, because I love garlic so much. Seasoning wise, we're also going to be adding, I've got here about a tablespoon, a little less than a tablespoon, chopped fresh sage. I've got a tablespoon of chopped fresh thyme, about the same amount of chopped fresh parsley. And when these come together, again, no oil, just the water from the mushrooms. We're gonna saute it all together, and I'll show you, I'll go in batches, little by little. We're not running a race here. We don't need to do it all in one shot. So without further ado, let's hit the stove. Okay, welcome back. What we're gonna do now, as I mentioned, we're gonna do this in batches because there's too much here to do all at once. We want to extract the water from these. We do not want to brown them. Browning is a no-no, and we don't need an awful lot of heat. As I said, we're not adding oil. We're just gonna let them go in there. It takes patience. We're running a marathon, not a sprint. So as we wait for that to heat up, quick, think something funny to say.
Sports.
Squeeze some cheese. You hear that sizzle? I'm gonna back off the heat. See, as the moisture comes out, they start shrinking in size too, obviously. So I'm gonna add some more. See the bubbling water in there? The moisture's coming out just as we planned. As I mentioned before, a little patience. Not all gonna come out at once. As soon as I have enough water out of them, I can start adding the shallots and the garlic. We're using water from the mushrooms, no oil. If you can see that. The water coming out nicely. I'm gonna add a little more, in fact. After I get a little more water out, I'm going to slowly, not all at once, slowly add the shallots, the spices, season it a little bit, and of course the fresh garlic. Just the portobello alone has such a beautiful smell to it. So we've got enough that I can start to add the shallots. Not all at once, of course, because we still got more mushrooms to go. And remember, we're not browning anything. So we've got that. Let's throw in some of our garlic. Portobello, garlic, and the shallots, just alone. No seasoning yet. I love that smell. Now I'm gonna add a little seasoning. I'm gonna add some of my sage, my chopped fresh thyme, and some of my fresh parsley. And look at all that water still coming out of there. That smells so good. Let's break for lunch. Suddenly I'm starving. Add a little more now. And when that moisture comes out from the extra mushrooms I just added, we'll add more of our ingredients. Because again, we're relying on that water to cook the veggies. We're in the home stretch. This is my favorite part of making this dish because the duxelles, this smells like heaven. Seriously, trust me. Let that sit. The rest of my spices, sage, thyme, and the parsley. When we put the last of the mushies in there, we'll season with salt and pepper, mix in the chopped shrimp. Once we chop it, last of the mushroom. Rest of the shallots. I used one decent sized shallot, by the way, and I used 2 cloves of garlic. Probably have gotten away with just 1, but I love garlic. We seem to really have our way with garlic, don't we, on our recipes? That was the last of the mushies. Gonna season this sucker a little bit. Still got a little ways to go yet. Still a lot of water that needs to come out of there, but we're certainly not in any hurry. A little bit of fresh black pepper. And I'm going to lower the heat now that we're in the home stretch. And this could sit here on simmer for a little while, get the rest of that moisture out of there. So essentially, we'll just leave it on a little longer to reduce it some without browning it. You do have to keep an eye on it. You can't go and start this and then go watch the football game or SpongeBob. Can we go and watch football now? Yeah, football. Can we do that?
Yeah, football.
Let's let that do its thing. The whole kitchen smells of portobello mushroom. It's the most beautiful thing, I have to say. Now I'm just going to simply chop up the partially cooked shrimp, and we're going to mix that with our still cooling off duxelles. So this isn't very exciting, but it must be done. And just to give you something to look forward to, after we chop up the shrimp, we're going to brown our meat. And I want to get these finely chopped as well. I'll tell you, now you add the shrimp and that beautiful duxelles, just get a piece of bread, 2 pieces of bread, make a sandwich, you're all set. Who needs the fillet? I went a little extra heavy on the shrimp this time, because shrimp is a beautiful thing to some of us. And now we bring together this heavenly duxelles with the shrimp. And just try to get it as uniformly mixed as possible. And there is our special order duxelles with some surf added to it. In terms of the shrimp, now it needs the turf, the star of the show. And what we're going to be doing is seasoning and browning the fillet. Then we're going to start wrapping. And I don't mean like singing a hip, hop, a hippie to the hippie, the hip, hip, hop. Not that kind of wrapping. Wrapping it up. You'll probably want to cut soon so I don't do that again. Okay, we're going to season and brown the beef tenderloin. Always brown the meat first. And just a side note, the butcher wrapped it up so it'll be easier to handle when we brown. Obviously, we're going to cut those cords when we wrap it up and make the Wellington. Cut the cord! So let's season this baby. And I also want some fresh ground pepper on there. Now we're going to add some olive oil to a hot pan, preheated pan. That's more than enough. And that's exactly the sound that I want. Move that to the side. Bend the pan a little bit, not bend the pan, lean the pan a little bit, so I get the side of the meat at the same time. I'll brown this baby good, accentuate that beef flavor. And FYI, this is barely a 2-pound piece of beef. I don't want to cut corners browning it. I want to get that flavor. And the browning makes all the difference, believe me. All right. Next up, oh, are we on? Next up, when that cools down, we're gonna cut those cords and we're gonna wrap it, not in the dough yet. We're gonna wrap it up, seal it up, and pop it in the fridge for at least a half hour. Let it all come together. Then we'll wrap it in the final dough and we'll bake it on an oven at 400 degrees, about 35 minutes for a 2-pounder. Nice and rare in the center. And that's all I got to say.
Stop eating.
Oh, you caught me. I was sneaking a nibble here and there. This is capicola. What is capicola? It's like a ham, basically. It's not as hardcore as prosciutto, which you'll often see with these beef Wellington recipes. The reason I shy away from the prosciutto is it's got that strong ham flavor and it's really salty. The Parma is the top-notch prosciutto, which is the saltiest of them all, I think. But capicola will still act as a moisture barrier. That's the whole point for this. Because as the juices are coming out of the meat, we don't want to soak up our dough and make slop. So it acts as a moisture barrier, just like prosciutto. Less salt, less in-your-face flavor. It still has a flavor, but it's a minimal flavor. And I've experimented with all kinds of moisture barriers for this. I think this is the best one. So what I've done, I've started wrapping them out on some saran wrap. This isn't the final product. What I'm going to do now is take some of the duxelles that we made before with the shrimp, and I'm going to put a layer on top of this. I can't get over that smell, Em. It just makes me hungry every time. Must eat. Take our browned meat and we'll place that on the center. This is the scary part. You're going to get some spillage out the side, nothing to fear. And there's our naked beef Wellington. This is going to go in the refrigerator for at least a half hour. Then when we take it out, we'll get our puff pastry. That'll be our dough. We'll wrap the final product, pop it in the oven, and keep our fingers crossed. Haha, this guy sat for more like 40 minutes in the fridge. What we're going to do now is unwrap with the saran wrap. We've got here the puff pastry sitting on a fresh piece of saran wrap. This is a little bit of a Chubby Gourmet twist, as if we haven't twisted this beef Wellington enough already. Rather than, I've tried making pie crust as well, but it's not worth the extra effort when you can just use puff pastry already made. But what we're gonna do is, with a grinder, a spice grinder, we're gonna grind up some pinoli nuts. We're gonna spread that as a layer. Then we're gonna put our Wellington assembly on top of it, make the final dish, and we should be good to go. So, the easy part, let's grind some pinolis. A little at a time. There is a lot of oil content in all nuts, pretty much. So I've got to give it a little help. Now, pinolis are very mild nuts, actually. So it's not going to be overpowering, but you will notice that it's in there. And I think it makes a nice touch. to an already touched beef Wellington.
Your cannolis are showing.
Well, cover them up for me, quick. I'm just gonna take some of these. Again, this is not mandatory. It's optional. All right. Now the tough part. What I would normally do is I would wrap this tight and I would put it in the fridge again to let it solidify a little bit. But since I didn't put any flour on it, I'm just gonna go for it. We're gonna wrap it as tight as we can by hand, which we've already done. And now I'm gonna make a little room and show you the pan that I'll be using. I'm using a pan with a little shelf in there, okay? So the Wellington is gonna sit right on here. And what I'm also going to do is egg yolk wash, not an egg wash, egg yolk, separated from the whites because we're not baking a pie. And this will make it even prettier. I'm just going to close the edges as best as I could. And a little bit of salt on top, not much. Perfect, if I do say so myself. Now we're ready to pop this in the oven, 400 degrees. Gonna have it for about 35, 40 minutes, no more than that. Now we're going to take it out. Oh, I hear some sizzling. Look at that. I purposely kept it in there a little longer than I should have because I like it that way. Now, no matter what, under no circumstances do you cut that yet. For the size of this, I say 15 minutes before you slice into it. Now, it gives me 15 minutes to find a suitable knife to do so. I'm going nice and slow to preserve those incredible juices. Oops. This looks so decadent. I'm gonna get some of the duxelles with some of the crust, some little shrimpies. I would not have gone over. It's still rare, but not too rare. Just in time. Look at that rare cut of meat. And you don't even notice any of the flavor of the capicola. And it didn't do too bad as a moisture barrier either. We lost some fluids, but most of them are still in there. It's still very juicy. I definitely like the capicola instead of the prosciutto. Well, it may not look as fancy as some, but it does taste pretty damn good. I'm not just saying that. Well, there you have it. There's my concept of a surf and turf beef Wellington. You can actually taste each of the ingredients in there. They all get along as good friends should. I really wouldn't change anything. If I left it in less, it would be too rare, I think, in the center. It's already rare enough. I think it's actually textbook grade beef Wellington as far as the temperature it was cooked to. So there you have it. There's my surf and turf beef Wellington. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you learned something. I hope you got some ideas for your own cooking. You may want to try this, or maybe you got some modifications you'd like to make. You're cooking. It's personal. It's what you like. There's no right or wrong. Anyhow, on that note, remember, I'd love to hear your comments. If you liked it, please like. It helps the channel. Subscribe if you want to see more. Don't forget to hit the notification. And until next time, hasta lasagna.